Hey, welcome to late October of 2023. But as I record this, I'm just getting over COVID, and I'll mention that in today's episode. This is with Luke LeBlanc, who I had on this program. Oh, I can't remember now. Seems like almost 2 years. Got to look back into my catalog here, but I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. And I always have water going on anyway, or something, or a soda. Usually my Zevia, which my daughter got me into, which is just actually a healthier soda, if there's such a thing. It's funny how I try to get like a healthier version of something that's not so healthy. Like I tried one of those plant-based Reese's peanut butter cups. I'm like, I don't know what the point is behind that, but it's not so bad. But I tried that and I was like, I don't know. So I don't know what's to be gained from something like that. But Zevia is not too bad. This is just pure water today, which kind of got me through my discussion with Luke, who has a great new album that's coming out today. And we get into that. He is a Minnesota-based performer. So over there in Minneapolis, just like his predecessors, Prince and Bob Dylan, big inspirations to him, or more so Bob Dylan. But we talk about that and many other things about how we got this, how he got this album together. So enjoy today's episode.
How have you been?
Yeah, I've been good, good. I've been getting over COVID. That's been fun. That's going around here in Georgia. I don't know. I mean, they said the numbers were going down,
Yeah.
but lately, I don't know. I think they're going to go back up here in the South. I don't know. It's going to be a rough autumn and winter, definitely.
It's been the same here too. Like every day somebody new that I know has it and I haven't gotten it, knock on wood, but I hopefully I'd be fine. So,
Yeah, it's just really different. It's a different kind of feeling in a way. I know it's mutated down. I couldn't even imagine what people went through over 3 years ago when this was first happening, which was a
yeah, of
very nasty virus then.
course.
But what it is now, it's just different. I mean, it's not nearly as bad as the flu. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, so
Mhm.
I had the flu much worse up there. Things spread, and as you know, being up north and it's getting colder, and you're all inside, those viruses really can attack people.
Yeah, yeah, especially I mean, yeah, up here in the winter months it's like there's nothing to do except be inside with everybody's germs. So, try our
Hopefully,
best.
you'll be okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially in those clubs because you do a lot of performing up there. You know, I can see you
Yeah.
in front of the fireplace there, and you're in these cozy, beautiful clubs, and
Yeah.
yeah, you're closed off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, make the best of it. You make the best of it. And
Yeah,
if you get
yeah.
sick, I don't know, sometimes it's kind of a welcome break from the world because you get an excuse to like do nothing and rest up a little. So I don't know.
It's so hard for me because as a runner, as you follow me on there, it's so
Yep.
hard for me to just sit around. I've been doing some binging. I did some Netflix binging, and what I was watching was this thing out of the UK. There was this TV presenter. She was killed by a mysterious person. So I
Okay.
binged that. Did a few things. I actually went through Ted Lasso. We had like Apple TV as a trial, and I did that. And it's like got all that out of the way, all this stuff
Nice.
that people are talking about.
Yeah, I just finished Better Call Saul finally, the last season of it. That was a trip. Oh my gosh.
That is very well done. Very,
Oh,
very well done. Vince Gilligan is such a genius.
such a master class in like I'm no like film buff or film expert or anything, but it just feels like a master class in like characters, dialogue, the
Everything.
way things are shot, the angles, how like the start of the show will kind of tie into the end, the colors. It's just he hits every single category of what good film is. Even though it's a show, it kind of feels like film, you
It
know?
does. It does. And that's why it's such a standout. And I know a lot of the public, I don't know if they really appreciate, really deep art like that. But yeah, he's
Yeah.
amazing. Absolutely
Yeah.
amazing. But if you go through Ted Lasso, there's a lot of music in that. So like I'm
Oh,
hitting the Shazam like every other minute. I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. So I think Bill Lawrence and Jason Sudeikis are the producers of that. So whatever music they were using was just, yeah, if you go through that, it's just amazing stuff.
very cool. Well, I need to check into Ted Lasso. I'm not a big soccer fan, so I've been like reluctant, but I don't know. Maybe I'll have to give it a try one of these days.
Yeah. I'll be coughing a little bit here. I only got chest congestion from COVID, so it's like that's the only thing I've been dealing with was sore throat and chest congestion. So
Oh,
not too bad.
not too bad. Well, I've heard you can't catch COVID through the
Yeah.
computers, right? Maybe Bill Gates lets you catch it. Just kidding.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. Bill Gates will be tracking us through all the vaccines and everything. But the thing is, I've been able to get a lot of work done too when you go remote like this.
Yeah, I bet. No kidding.
Yeah. This is great. You got a great new release out there. And how long has it been since you've been working on it? And from idea, conception to getting this done, how long did this project take?
Well, last year so this was October 2022, under a year ago, I had just finished my last record, which was called Fugue State. And which funny, that's a good tie into Breaking Bad. You know, the episode is in the grocery store and claims he had a fugue state. Anyways, I had just wrapped up that record, and I think like having that record released and just out there, and we played some shows as a full band. I think it kind of put a nice ribbon and bow on that, and it was like that set of work is done. Obviously, still need to promote and stuff once an album is out, and
Sure.
um, but I think just creatively, the creative side of things, that was wrapped up and done. And I think that allowed my mind to just start thinking up new ideas. And for some reason, I just started getting a bunch of song ideas. And it's kind of how I've always written. All my songs kind of come at once, and then I'll have a period where I don't have any ideas. It's kind of how I do everything. I've always been like a procrastinator. So I think my mind has gotten used to like just doing everything all at once, and then you don't do anything for a minute, and then you do everything all at once. And so I had a bunch of songs come to my head from, let's say, October 22 through January, February of this year. And I had enough songs where I was ready to record another album. I didn't know when I was going to release it, but let's at least start. So I called Eric Koskinen, who's produced my last couple of albums, and we talked on the phone, and we actually just set up a meeting in his recording studio, not to record or anything, but just to sit around and chat about songs and recording and what we're going to do different on this album that we hadn't in the last two. And the last two, just due to logistics, COVID, the costs of making an album, we kind of recorded everything one at a time. And I'd record myself. Then we'd have drummer day, have the drummer come down and play.
Oh,
Then we'd
cool.
have piano day, have the piano come play.
Yeah.
We wanted to do something different this time. Why don't we just get the full band in the recording studio? Let's record it all at once. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be flubs. There's going to be the creaking of a chair in the background that you can't control for because everybody's in the studio at once. But
That's chaos.
let's just do it and see what happens.
Yeah.
And maybe something cool will come out of it. And so we recorded this in March, over 2 days, March 18th and March 19th. And just had the band in the studio. We did 6 songs on the Saturday and 6 songs on the Sunday. We ended up cutting 2 songs we're going to use it for something else
Yeah.
down. But it just felt really good. It captured that feeling of playing live where you let go of that need for everything to be perfect and that need to play everything exactly as you intended, and just let go and really fully embrace the performative aspect of music, which for me, as somebody who really can get really worried about making things perfect, that's hard for me to do. But I think it ultimately landed on it created a better sounding record, I think. Just a little more organic. It just sounds like five musicians in a studio playing.
Yeah,
Um,
sometimes I think it's just better to just do it that way, just straight through instead of being like Steely Dan, who takes like 10 years to do a record in the studio. And you got to drive yourself crazy that way. It's just so much more. If it comes together like that, it's definitely more organic. It feels that way. So the name of the record is called A Place. Where does that title come from?
yeah. So the first the first track on the album is called A Place, and the album as a whole is called Places. And um, the song A Place is kind of what the record ended up getting named after. But as a concept, I think we all go through places, whether they're physical places in life or emotional places or mental places. I think we all go through different places. And I think personally, I think I've always had this notion that, at some point everything will be perfect and right, and that's the right time to do X, Y, and Z. And I've been trying to train my mind lately to remember nothing is ever going to be perfect. There's never going to be a perfect time for anything. And the best that we can do is live our lives in whatever place we're in, whether that's a physical place or emotionally. We might be feeling great. We might be having a great year. We might not be having the best year ever. But I think life is about just, at least so far, I think I have years to go and figure things out. But I think it's about just doing the best we can in whatever place we're in. And so each track on the album kind of captures either a physical or emotional state of being and captures a different kind of place, I think. So I just decided to call it Places.
That's okay. Places, yeah, that gets confusing when you name a track and then that's the after the main title like that. So that's interesting.
I didn't
Um,
totally
yeah,
think well enough in advance, but here we are.
yeah. No, it's good. So yeah, it connects you physically and emotionally. This sounds like you're getting into a very philosophical thing, like being conscious in the presence and not worrying about past or future.
Yeah, in a way. And I think it might be a little bit of a rejection too of that notion. I mean, I'm all into I'm into being in a meditative place and trying to be calm in certain aspects. But I think
Are you really into meditation? Is that something you get into?
I love the idea of it. I'm bad at doing it myself. I think my form of meditation is like putting on a podcast and doing the dishes by hand. I think that's what gets me into when I try to sit there and meditate. I've tried to do it. I'm not that great at it, but nobody really is, I suppose.
Yeah. Somebody was saying that I'm a really bad meditator. I forgot who it was. Man, one of those zillion podcasts I listen to. But somebody was saying I'm just terrible at this thing. But yeah, I could see that throughout the theme of places and how you're going for that and being in the moment. And it's a great opening track. It just really gets you into that. So you have this great country groove, this nice picking to get the record going.
Thanks. Yeah, it's got a nice groove that kind of loops on itself a little bit. Song as a bridge that kind of creates a nice space as well. We were in the studio and the bassist on the album, Kaz Phelan, who also sings backup vocals. We were we were just gonna have an instrumental section that just followed the chorus of followed the structure of the chorus, and he kind of said, what if we kind of went to this minor thing? And so we went to the minor, and it was fun, and that's something that I don't think happens when you're recording everything one instrument at a time, because when everybody's at once, somebody can say, I know how I'm singing backup vocals and you're singing backup vocals, but maybe it'll sound better if just he sings, or maybe it sounds better if just John sings on the keyboards. Um, really opened up the room for some group think, which I'm not always the best at, especially the last couple of years, we've all been cooped up in our apartments and homes. There's hasn't been a lot of groupthink, and it was just nice
Yeah.
to have that.
Gets the human factor involved, and it feels so much more real than sitting here, I'll send you this track and then I'm gonna listen to it and play along with that and send it back to you. And it's just like that's pieces, parts coming together. It doesn't feel like the human experience. This is what worries me with AI. Is
Mm.
that things just like are so mechanical that way, and you can totally tell. So hopefully the human factor will trump that, and we could live without AI getting involved.
For sure, and that must be hard for you as a writer. I was listening to I listened to a podcast, The Daily by the New York Times. I'm sure you're familiar, and um,
Yeah.
journalists on there were talking about AI and how just scary that is, and um,
Yeah,
I
it's depressing too. It's like, you put so much, your fingers hitting the keyboards, and it's like, I hope that doesn't take things over. It scares me. This worries me with music though, too. Like, can we get chips implanted into our heads if you're a keyboard player and it could figure out, on the keyboard and it's just doing what you're thinking, makes things more efficient, but there's just something visceral about your hands being on the guitar or on the keyboard. Something
yeah,
beautiful about that.
yeah, and I bet like a lot of previous technologies at a certain point, I have a feeling, I'm no expert on anything, but I have a feeling that we'll resolve it. We'll come up with some rules and structures on how to use AI to better our world, like we did with the electric guitar. People thought the devil was in the electric guitar back in the day, or airplanes. It was freaking people out when they came out, right? But maybe with AI, we learn how to use it to better opportunities, to expand and ultimately maybe create more jobs and opportunity for people. But it's a scary point right now, I think, where the technology is so new and there's no rules around it, there's no regulation around it. And so, yeah, I mean, as a musician, that is scary. The fact, I think what scares me the most is you can see stuff online right now, whether it's video, audio, even music. I think I'm scared about when we get to the point where we can't tell the difference between something that's AI generated and something that's generated by a person who's lived experiences, brought them to create that thing. That I think that's a scary point for me.
Yeah, that really is. It's been like really sudden. We haven't really heard about it even like a year ago. All of a sudden, bam. It's like, yeah, I guess that technology can be out there. And it seems like it's really developing really fast. So that's scary in that sense, but that's true. And it's hard to keep up with rules and regulations because the technology is so fast. So how do you do that? It's very tough.
It is. It is tough. It's tough. I mean, really, I think it ties into like we have, these elections coming up,
Gosh.
and
The
that's
yeah.
a subject with a million wormholes we could.
Oh yeah, go on for hours and hours and hours. It's and I've been covering politics for ages now, probably over 35 years. And it seems to be more and more of a circus as time goes on. But you know what? The first crazy stuff, you might remember this when Jesse Ventura was your governor in Minnesota. Whoever would have thought that would have happened? I knew this guy as a wrestler. He became a governor. I mean, that kind of broke one of the things that broke the ice in politics.
Yeah, yeah, it did. I don't think, I think I was too young to really remember it, but we used to have a family friend named Tom. He was my dad's friend for a long time. Tom passed away a couple years ago, but he used to own a record store on what's called Lowry Avenue, which runs from north to northeast Minneapolis. And I wrote a song about it called Lowry Avenue. But in his basement, Tom had all these old records, old tape cassettes, because he used to own a record store. But what he also had, he was really good at keeping old memorabilia and stuff. He was a big, he was kind of a big, he liked to vote for he liked to do whatever was the strangest thing to do. He wanted to be niche. And so he was a big Jesse Ventura guy, and so in his basement he still had yard signs from when, Ventura. It was like Ventura for governor, really simple yard sign, but it was kind of neat. It's like a relic from history now. I don't know where those ended up because he passed away, and I'm sure his family cleared out the house and stuff. Whatever family he had, I don't know if he had a lot, but that's another subject.
There are probably a lot of characters like him, obviously, that got somebody like him in office. And then flash forward to Senator Al Franken, who I interviewed twice for some of my freelance articles and stuff I've done. So, which was really fun. But yeah, Minnesota is unique unto itself. Definitely.
It really is. It's a diamond in the Midwest. A lot of cool history and fun facts that come from here. Judy Garland from The Wizard of Oz is from here, Bob Dylan, Prince, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, and great inspirations to you. Obviously, we've talked about Dylan and all of that, and when he went electric and all of that, and oh my gosh, I can't believe that. But yeah, you could just tell he was a huge influence on a lot of your stuff, which is good quality stuff, definitely. And you have a new single out now, which is very exciting off of this album. Before this album is being released on October 27th, 2023. It's No Good. That's another fantastic track, and it should be a single.
Thanks. Yeah, no good. It's kind of got a nice slow burn to it. And one of the instruments that we didn't have during the live session was violin. Violin and pedal steel were recorded after. And I wasn't there for the violin recording. I think I was out of town, and Eric, producer, had a violinist that he knows named Cora Amelia. Cora Amelia, she's out of Michigan.
Yeah.
She's like 21, something like that.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, and it's also on a place on the track on there. I can hear some violin as well. Yeah, great addition.
She drove down from Michigan, and Eric said, "Hey, Cora, he's Eric is originally from Michigan, so he's known Cora since she was like a little kid. They were like kind of family friends, and he's friends with her parents, and so he's known her for a long time. And he's like, I think Cora would be good on this, and um, she can only come down these 2 days." And I said, "Well, I won't be there, but y'all go ahead and do it." Which I'm really thankful to be able to have folks that I can trust like that, where it's like, I trust you to just do it. And I look forward to hearing what it sounds like, because the structure of the songs were there. So she just came in and recorded on top of them. And I remember so back to No Good, when I first heard the rough draft of No Good after the violin was on, um, uh, Eric and Cora kind of turned the violin into like the intro for the song and used the violin to copy the melody that I sing on the chorus, and kind of turned it into a recurring refrain throughout the song, which was amazing. And it's just it was kind of cool to it was a little different to like listen to your song, but with an intro that you didn't come up with. It's like I did come up
Yeah,
with it. I wrote all the songs and all the melodies, but I didn't think to take the melody from the chorus, play it on the violin, and then make that the intro.
yeah,
So I remember listening to the intro, and it really drew me in, and so got me very excited. I was like, oh, if a song that I wrote drew me in, maybe it'll draw some other people in too. That'd be nice.
yeah. And I like the backing vocals on this track. Kind of reminds me when I put on Eric Clapton's Slow Hand. A lot of backing vocals throughout that record. It's just gives that extra texture. So, I mean, is that like some of the producers' ideas, or did you want good backing vocals on that?
I did. I really value some good backing vocals. That harmony just adds so much. I think a lot of the music I listened to growing up had really strong backing vocals. I'm a big fan of the band,
Yeah.
that really ties in. So the backing vocals are Kaz Phelan, who plays bass, and John Cleve Richardson, who played piano throughout the whole album. And a funny story about that. So my idea for all of this was we're recording live. Like we're recording everything live. We're just going to go in there as a band and do it. And that includes playing our instruments and singing backup vocals. Everything is just live. And I didn't stop to think that maybe Kaz and John were thinking we were going to record all the instruments and me singing, but then they were going to do backing vocals after the fact. And it turns out that's what they thought we were going to do, is we were going to record everything. And then the next day they were just going to do backing vocals. And so Kaz and I were on the phone the night before the first recording session. And he was just like, so what day are we doing the backing vocals? And I'm like, what do you mean? We're doing them tomorrow. He's like, oh, we're going to do it as we play in the recording studio. And he was kind of, I could feel the anxiety building in his voice over the phone. I was like, yeah, man, we're just going to do it. And so we got to the studio and they did it. I really give them credit for it. And they will say it themselves. I think they would have preferred to just do the backing vocals after, because they had to come up with parts like on the spot, and just put things together without knowing they were going to have to put things together. But it really turned out for the best. And I think they were really happy with how it turned out afterwards too. And I just think there's something magical about people's like first gut instinct to playing to a song. And Eric has talked about this a lot, and I've learned this a lot recording with him as a producer. When folks are coming up with parts or vocal harmonies or whatever, usually their first instinct to play to a song is usually the best. And I think capturing their backing vocals without them having practiced anything was the best way to go about it. Even if it caused them a little bit of nerves.
The anxiety went off the charts, I'm sure, but that's art. It's funny because there's no exact science to it, and that's also the beauty of putting together something like this. And you can capture that lightning in a bottle just on that first go round. If you keep doing it, then you're overthinking it. So there is something great about spontaneity like that.
Yeah, there really is. And it's something I struggle with, because I like to have things planned out. But I still struggle with it to this day, dividing the logistics and the planning and the scheduling, dividing that out from like the art and the performing. Because if you're weighted down by the logistics and too much planning, it really takes away from the art. You really have to be in the moment. And speaking of my meditation, my listening to podcasts, interview with like Seth Meyers, from SNL and late night. And he talked about how he was the head writer at SNL, but he was also a performer in the show because he would do the Weekend Update. And I think Lorne Michaels would tell him halfway through the week, okay, you need to stop writing. You're done with that piece now, and you need to focus on the performing piece of it.
Yeah. So you're kind of multitasking in a way, and that could cause a little anxiety too.
Especially with performing, and you can feel. In that podcast, Seth Meyers talked about how I think audiences like to watch us having fun. Whether you're watching somebody on a podcast, on a show, whatever, people like to see when you're loose and enjoying yourself. And I think we can tell immediately when somebody's not enjoying themselves. Because if we're seeing somebody in person that's not enjoying themselves, I think our first instinct is like, well, gosh, what's wrong? What did I do? Did I do something? And sometimes that might extend to entertainment.
Yeah, I bet that does transpire to the listener, and the listener wants to feel good subconsciously or consciously. So partaking in that, you want to make them feel comfortable as well. I could totally see that. So that's the whole thing. You don't want to be the boss sometimes. So it's like, well, you got a producer, Eric. He can worry about all this logistics crap. I want to write and perform. I don't want to worry about all this other garbage trying to get all these people together. So it's hard to wear all those hats at once if you really want to do that.
Yeah, it is. I think that's a big reason why I like working with Eric,
Yeah.
uh, and of course him personally is awesome to work with, but just the idea of having a producer and somebody, as you said, that can just kind of lead the ship, and you can just go into, like, as a performer, I can just go into, I'm a team player mode. I'm just playing a role. I'm singing and playing the guitar, and there's somebody playing the drums, and there's somebody playing bass, and I get to just do one thing. And I feel bad for Eric because he played electric guitar on the album, and he was also engineering, and he was
Yeah.
producing. So he must have been pretty worn out after those days, but that.
Didn't want to admit it, but yeah, he was working overtime on that, I'm sure.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
You have two versions of a song because one has what's called an S bomb in it, own it. So,
Oh,
you want to make one radio friendly. So, I mean, how did you feel about having to do that? Because, it always reminds me of, like, Tom Petty did two versions because he didn't want to talk about rolling a joint. And the FCC might come after him. So he did two versions of that song. How does that feel about doing that? Did you think about doing that, or did Eric come up with that idea?
well, the FCC made me, really. I mean,
Yeah.
if you think about it, the radio stations, it's just a general thing where we started sending out some songs to radio stations, and immediately we got a pushback from one station that said, "Hey, this song, we noticed it's got an explicit lyric. Can you make sure to send a notice?" And so I had to write up a thing that just said, like, "Hey, the S bomb is in the song. There's a clean attached," and um, I didn't mind it. I got to write up a nice PDF and organize it in a Google Drive folder and have the clean version and the other version. It wasn't hard to make the clean version. We just took that, we just muted that out of my vocal track. I don't mind it. I get it.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a parent in the car with their 3-year-old, and they don't want them to hear shit until they're ready, and it's nice to have a little warning for it. I get it. It's not a I
Yeah.
wasn't.
A lot of artists do that, and some like tailor it to a certain amount of markets. I think Lady Gaga did like a whole bunch of city shout outs to one of her tracks years ago. I remember she did that. So yeah, I'm sure they don't mind that. But it's kind of interesting to see that. By the way, a great track, Own It. I love the saxophone on that. It's just got a great groove to it. I don't hear much sax these days on a lot of new on terrestrial radio.
Yeah, it's a beautiful instrument. I feel like old like Van Morrison tracks,
Yeah.
just such a master class in how to use just like some simple saxophone riffs for songs. And there's a kind of middle part in Own It. I think it's after the second chorus or something like that. And we got to the studio with the saxophone player, and he was another instrument that we did record after the fact, and just trying to come up with some parts. And I was like, okay, after that second chorus, could you do like a dun dun dun, and then after that, can you do dun dun dun? And I felt like silly asking this guy who's extremely talented on the saxophone.
Can you translate those notes? It's just, this is in my head. Can you do this?
Yeah. Um, but sometimes it's just those simple licks with pop oriented music that's kind of all you need, and it sounded really cool. So yeah, we don't have sax on every single song, but there's a couple. A funny story with the saxophone. Um, when the saxophone player was in the studio, this was after the live sessions, of course. The very last take that we'd have the saxophone player do on every song, we do like 2 or 3 takes per song. The very last take, we asked Casey he played saxophone. We asked him, okay, on this last take, just play all over it. Just play
Yeah.
all the notes you can. Just really go full out, just so we've got a track of wacky, interesting stuff. And when we were leaving the studio, I asked Eric, could you just bounce me the rough tracks? It can be the last take. That's fine. I just want to hear the saxophone on the song. And so I uploaded all those tracks to a playlist on SoundCloud that me and all the artists that played on the record had access to. I didn't think they were going to listen to it because they had heard the, rough drafts after our live session. It was just for my own listening. But imagine these guys played on the live session, the song sounded really good, and then they go back to listen to it, and there's just saxophone all over everything. There's no parts. It's just million saxophone notes over everything, And after a while, John and Kaz, the bass and piano player, they kind of took me aside at a recording session or a rehearsal for a show we were playing, and they said, like, we don't want to, trounce on your artistic, notions or whatever, but are you really having that much sax on every single part of the song? I was like, no, it was just the rough draft. I didn't think you were going to listen to it. But turns out everybody who played in their session that day thought that I was like putting just an exorbitant amount of saxophone on every single track. And I had to clear that one up.
The nice groove to it. I like some of these lyrics. It's a bitch being on your own. I just it's really very, very classic. It does give you that feeling, that Van Morrison feeling. It's a good
Yeah.
standout. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Good
I think,
tracks. Yeah.
yeah. Own It is kind of I'm 27 now. I'm going to be 28 in November. And I still feel very young, and I am very young, and I'm very
Hmm.
happy. But I think there's something about getting over that like hump of like 25 years old where you leave the early 20s and you have a second to look back on some of the silly things you did and some of the great things you did to get to the point where you are, where you're 27 and have accomplished certain things. But you kind of look back at like those years after graduating high school or graduating college, whatever, where not only are you building a life around yourself, you're finding your first place to rent, you're finding your first job, um, and kind of becoming an adult, and you're building all those things, but you're also kind of building yourself, and who you are as a person outside of your classes, outside of high school, outside of college. And I think Own It is a little bit kind of about that feeling of those days. I don't know I remember when I moved to Nashville for about 6 months, I packed everything I had into the Ford Focus I was driving at the time, and I just drove down with X amount of dollars in my bank account and a Ford Focus full of a couple storage bins of stuff that and you just, it's like there's a certain amount of willingness to just do whatever pre 25, and try to capture a little bit of that and Own It.
Yeah, and getting life experiences and really learning along the way. So this isn't like, this is it's all called paying your dues, which you don't see a lot on these competition shows. You look at like those American Idols and the Voice and all that stuff. It's, that kind of takes it away. I mean, you go physically down to these places and really, you're just living and learning. And there is something about 25. Yeah. I've noticed that. I have a daughter who's 25, so she's just like kind of figuring it out. It's taken a while. It really does. I think at 25, I was already into my career in a few years in. So yeah, it does. It takes a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. And those lessons those things that seem so obvious, like you look at pre 25 or whatever the age we want to call it. Uh, some of those really obvious lessons kind of sometimes they take months of time to really figure out, and months of mistakes, and doing the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing or not having perspective. And so,
Yeah.
and I
And
just
it
got,
humbles you too. There, you deal with a lot of that, a lot of the humility.
yeah, you gotta, you do. And I'm one of those people that like, it always happens late at night. It's like, I don't know if this ever happens to you, but you go in your mind and replay like the worst, most awkward, cringe-filled moments of your life. I'll do that. I'll like replay them. Like, why in the world did I say or do that? Um, and I'm trying to just own it. Just we all make mistakes. We're not perfect, and just embrace them and let them go.
Yeah. Yeah, and you don't know until you try. And this is the way you go out with all these albums. It's like, I'm gonna just do it. I mean, it's better than sitting around and being scared, saying, I'm not gonna go take that risk.
Yeah.
There's always gonna be that. You gotta get out there and just do it and see what happens.
Yep. Yeah. Being learning how to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's a toughie.
Yeah. You got a good bars type of song on here, Never Met You at All. And I love the harmonica on this. Now, who was doing that?
That was me. I just had my harmonica holder, and
Very good.
it was all live. Played full band and sang the verse, and then just took a harmonica solo and kept playing along. Never Met You at All. I actually wrote when I was I think I was 15 when I wrote that song. It was more of a kind of a finger picking number, and there's an older album of mine I released in high school. Under I used to go by a stage name, Little Diamonds. That was my stage name, and it's there's an album called New Orleans Bound under Little Diamonds, and Never Met You at All is on there. It's just me solo finger picking the guitar, playing it. I sound similar, but I sound different in a lot of ways. Because I was 18 when I recorded it. But it's a very good, solid track. I love it. But anyways, yeah, I wrote it when I was 16, and it's just always kind of been around. And um, I finger picked it on the album as we were playing, but John, who was playing piano, he picked up a resonator guitar. Eric's got like a wall full of guitars in his studio. It's easy to get distracted, actually, but he picked up a resonator guitar and just played along with the resonator guitar as we played rather than playing the piano. And so now, because of that, I don't finger pick the song anymore. I just strum it. And I think it, as you're saying, give it that it does feel like you're walking into like a honky tonk at 11 p.m. on a Thursday night or something, and it gave it a cool vibe. And again, it's just another thing that happens when you're able to record an album live. I don't think that would have happened. I think we would have started, if we recorded everything separately, it would have started as like a more acoustic finger picking song. John wouldn't have been there to grab the resonator off the wall and try something different. And um, that's another example of it, I think.
Yeah. Bars closing, get your last brew. That kind of reminds me. I hold that semisonic song, closing time. It's like, get your
Oh yeah,
last brew.
yeah. That's you get the last one before it ends. And um, the song really, it's kind of I don't know, it's about resigning to the fact that the way things are the way they are. The person wishes they never met the other person at all, but it's kind of an acceptance about it, I guess, and an attempt to move on. Another cool part of that song, Kaz, who played bass, he doesn't play upright bass, but Eric had an upright bass in there, so he just grabbed it out of the corner and we put a mic on it, and he just figured it out. So it's the one song with upright bass, and I think that's probably Kaz's only credit on a record playing upright bass too. So is
Yeah.
it what I liked about the experience is it was I think it was a new experience for a lot of folks who recorded. I think it was just something different. So
Yeah, and Cora got a little bit of violin on that one too.
Yeah, she's so talented. So talented. I'm doing an album release show in Minneapolis on what is it, December 15th.
Oh,
Um and she reached out on Instagram about she just said, "Hey, I might be off college at that point, on winter break, and if you want violin, I'd love an excuse to drive to Minneapolis." I was like, "Yes."
oh, that would be awesome. Yeah. I'll hope that happens. Yeah,
Yeah, I hope so too. I was hesitant to reach out because it's a huge ask to,
sure.
you mind driving just 6 hours, to
Hopefully no snow or anything like that. I don't know.
yeah, I'll knock on wood, but that's always a possibility here. So
Yeah, you never know. But with global warming, who knows? It's just been so way hotter than we could ever imagine this year. But
yeah,
yeah,
it's really something. I'm a big really into like I don't know anything about physics or space or anything, but I love like watching documentaries about it. And so I end up getting like suggested YouTube videos from Neil deGrasse Tyson. And there's one
right.
where he just kind of simplified climate change for the lay person, which I consider me if you're talking about
Yeah,
physics and meteorology, I don't know. But he just said, okay, the earth is warming, the glaciers are melting. Long story short, there's more moisture in the air now than there used to be. And if you add moisture to the weather, oh boy, different weird things are going to happen. They sure are.
yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I like that because he does break it down for the lay person. And
Yeah.
you hear so much about that's like, yeah, I think I'm gonna trust a scientist who can clearly explain that. Rather than people say, nothing's happening. I mean, crazy weather's been happening from the beginning of time. Come on. I mean, it's like I like to hear, real logic here.
Yeah. And it's true. I mean, we've always had crazy weather, but I think now it's getting expedited in a way that it hasn't before. And I don't
Yeah.
know. I hope we can continue to get to a place where people can have a little more of a common understanding. I think there's a lot of picking and choosing of which facts to believe and how we're going to think about things. And I don't know, I hope we can find a place where we're all in a greater communal understanding, if that makes sense. We're all
Oh yeah.
arguing different sets of facts, and I think
Yeah.
there are a set of facts that we can agree on, but that's not music, I guess.
Exactly. Well, and do you think maybe as you get older that you would get more into being more like of a John Mellencamp type thing and kind of mix politics with music, or you just want to stay completely away from that?
I don't know. I we'll let the subjects of the songs take take me to wherever they're gonna go. Um, I try to stay away from politics and instead I'm not shy about talking about the issues. Um, but I think there's a way to talk about the issues and your opinions on it in a reasonable, thought out way, whether you're right or wrong. We're all a little wrong about something. But then there's talking about politics, which I think when folks talk about politics, before they even talk about the issue, I think when you say talking about politics, before someone even talks about the issue, there's a lens that they're looking at that issue at first. And if I do anything, I want to try to avoid that. Um, so if there's a way to talk about an issue without the lens, I'm all for that. And I
Yeah.
think my last album, Fugue State, kind of hopped into that a little bit. Like uh, the song "Come Clean." I think that was a song that got into the divide that we're feeling as a country without saying I'm going to look at it from this narrative or
Right.
this. Hopefully, I'll let others be the judge of that.
Yeah. It always kind of makes me sad because, Bruce Springsteen always went into those waters and, most of the fans don't really care. But then you got these older crotchety people like, oh, you used to be great, but you haven't done anything good in 50 years, Bruce. You suck. You see these comments online, these keyboard warriors, but you can't avoid that. Obviously, it doesn't get to them, but it does. I mean, I just get very sad when I see that the state of where the nation is now, and just this anger. It's just so off the charts.
For sure. Yeah. Going back to those like comedy podcasts I listened to, I forget who it was, but one of them was talking about with like all those negative comments, we're all able to comment without anybody seeing our face or talking to somebody in
Right.
person. It's very unlikely that you'd walk up to somebody and say, man, you really suck. No, so rare to find somebody that would say that in person. So on this one podcast, one of the comedians was describing how he's gone to like he'll find the negative comment, like not the negative comment, but the really like just trying to be hurtful comment, and he'll reply to that person in a kind way, but just ask like, can you elaborate on what's going on? And that softens the other person up, because they kind of are reminded that like, hey, there's another person behind this, and it just opens some dialogue. And I think, I don't know, that just sticks with me, because I think it's a way for both people that might be spouting off online without any repercussions, and the people that might be hurt by it, to come together a little bit, because dialogue is the way to go forward with anything, really. As hard as it is to talk about things with other people, something that isn't going right, those uncomfortable conversations are so hard, but I feel like that's the only way we can work through issues, is going through those conversations.
Yeah. So Places, the whole album coming out. Do you have this on vinyl, CD, digital download? Is it everywhere we can find it? And obviously through your main website.
Yep, it'll be on vinyl. It'll be on CD, all of which can be ordered on the store page of my website, lukeleblanc.com, when it comes out in October, the 27th. And then everything will, of course, be on Spotify, Apple Music, all the streaming services, Amazon Prime. The first two singles, A Place and No Good, are out now. And then Own It will be the third single, coming out Friday the 13th, October the 13th. And then the whole album will be streaming on the 27th of October.
And good artwork with this. A great photographer named Sarah has been involved with this, is giving you some good photography and liner notes, I suppose.
Yeah, Sarah Belaklotsky. They're wonderful, wonderful photographer. Their shots are completely on film. Nothing's digital, which is really cool. So when we're doing photo shoots, it's like cool to see the old cameras, because they're like sometimes from the 80s, 90s. If I have my facts straight, but I know everything is on film, which is really cool. And yeah, so they did the photos, kind of turned them black and white, and then I kind of worked on I did the design kind of on the front and the fonts and the liner notes and stuff
Oh,
on the back.
I need to reactivate all my old cameras. As I save all my cameras too. Well, I first got into Super 8 filmmaking. I still have my old cameras. And it's funny because like that retro thing kind of always comes back in a way. And that, my still cameras, I have like a really nice Canon. I just got so sick of film because it's like I can't see my result right away. But yeah, there's like an art to that too. So there are people who are like, they're getting back into film photography.
Yeah, people are. It's I think I assume an exciting aspect about it too is that having to wait, because you got to wait till the film comes back. And then if something's really good, I'm sure there's like this amazing feeling of like, oh yeah, I got the exposure right on that.
Yeah.
For the cover, we tried to kind of capture like where I am still, but then the people walking by are kind of blurred. And that was like I learned what exposure meant at that point with
Yeah.
sort of. I'm not an expert on it, but um, I'm sure as a photographer, it was tough for Sarah Bell to know that like I'm going for this blurred shot with, people walking by, and Sarah Bell isn't able to confirm that day whether we got it. It's like gotta get the film back and then see did it work out, and it did work out. And I tried to say during the photo shoot like, hey, if none of this works out, it's all good. No pressure. Going back
What?
to the pressure thing, if there's too
Yeah.
much pressure, no one's gonna have fun and the work isn't gonna be great. And yeah, so I'm incredible photographer. If anybody out there needs photography, look up
Yeah.
Slotsky.
Yeah, that's fantastic. No, was she developing this herself?
Uh, I think I think it's taken to
To some lab. Yeah, because it's harder now, I'm sure. It used to be even I can go to Target and at least, get it developed, or if I want to get it on like disc. I haven't done that in years. That was the last place I saw where I could even do it.
yeah, the last time I was in one of those places was getting my passport photo taken, because you have to go into one of those places and have it printed and then send it in. So, but that's the first time in like a decade that I've been into like a Walgreens in order to get a picture taken.
Yeah. Yeah, check out and see if they actually develop film anymore. Gosh, it's been
Yeah.
ages. Wow. Well, thanks for stopping by. This is an exciting new release. And will you be performing beyond that show in December? A lot of performances in the Minneapolis area.
I will. Yep, there's this I'll post everything, lukeleblanc.com/, shows. But yeah, there's that Minneapolis show the night before. I think we're gonna be in Milwaukee, and I might be in La Crosse the day after. And then late November, early December, I've got a slew of shows kind of booked around the region. So trying to build up the kind of regional tour circuit with this record, and learning new things about booking and how it all works. But trying our best, and also trying my best to kind of get good video out there of songs, and
Yeah.
trying things and learning how to edit video. It's a fun, frustrating, but mostly fun process. And if people want to keep up with that, shows I'm booking, videos, new music, best place is my Instagram page, Luke LeBlanc Music. I post about my music and cats and random ideas that pop into my head. And
Cats are great. That's always good to post about that. Always gets the hits. I always suggest the Adobe suite if you're going to get into videography and into doing a video for all your songs. It's good to
that's
get that out there on YouTube.
yeah, no, I appreciate that suggestion. I was looking at video editing software, and it just seemed that everything boiled down to Adobe being the best. So I got my Adobe Premiere Pro subscription. So
Good. Oh,
yeah.
it's awesome. Yeah, I really do. I liked it always from the start. Some people are into DaVinci Resolve. Maybe that's a little more affordable, but that's a whole world I don't know about.
Yeah, I've heard that one too. And yeah, decided to take the plunge and pay my monthly Adobe subscription. If they
Good.
want to sponsor me or one of my shows, they can reach out.
Absolutely. Well,
Uh,
good deal. Thanks for stopping by.
yeah, thanks, Bob, and nice chatting with you. And really appreciate you having me on your show and putting a spotlight on musicians and artists everywhere. Thanks for what you do.
Have a good one. Take care.
Hey, you too.
Bye bye. Well, that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed speaking with Luke and speaking with somebody who's of another generation who has been inspired by people who I was inspired by. So it's always an interesting discussion. And well, hopefully we'll hear from you all very soon. Take care.